Everyone thinks war starts suddenly. One minute you're living your normal life, the next minute missiles are flying. That's not how it works. Major conflicts have warning signs, patterns that repeat throughout history. The problem is most people don't recognize them until it's too late. In the 48 hours before a major war breaks out, there are specific indicators that show up consistently. If you know what to look for, you have a brief window to prepare. Here's what those 48 hours actually look like. 48 hours before major military action, the intelligence community already knows something is coming. Satellite imagery shows troop movements. Communication intercepts spike. Diplomatic channels go quiet or become unusually active. But this information doesn't reach the public immediately. There's a gap between when governments know and when they tell citizens. That gap is your warning window if you're paying attention to the right sources. The first indicator happens around the 48-hour mark. Military leaves get cancelled. Personnel are recalled to bases now. This happens sometimes for exercises or heightened alert status, so it's not definitive alone. But when it's widespread, across multiple branches, across allied nations simultaneously, that's different. Social media actually becomes useful here. Military family groups, base town communities, they start noticing patterns. Spouses posting that their partner's leave was suddenly cancelled. People saying goodbye unexpectedly. It's scattered information, but the pattern emerges if you're watching around 40 to 42 hours before. You see strategic asset movements. Bombers get repositioned. Submarines put to sea. Aircraft carriers that were in port suddenly deploy. Naval assets don't move quickly, so this happens earlier in the timeline. Again, these movements aren't always publicized, but they're not invisible. Either commercial flight tracking shows military aircraft movements, ship tracking systems show naval deployment patterns. Independent analysts pick this up and start discussing it, usually in specialized forums or defense-focused social media, before it hits mainstream news. At about 36 hours out, diplomatic activity becomes obvious. Emergency UN Security Council meetings get called. Ambassadors get recalled from countries. High-level phone calls between leaders happen at unusual hours. The official statements coming out are carefully worded, but they're more urgent than normal diplomatic language. Phrases like all options on the table or consequences will be severe or red lines have been crossed start appearing. Embassy staff families get evacuation orders. This one is significant. When embassies start sending dependents home, the situation is serious. Embassies don't evacuate families lightly because it signals to the host country that relations are deteriorating badly. Between 24 and 36 hours before, financial markets react. This is one of the clearest signals available to regular people. Stock markets drop sharply. Oil prices spike. Gold prices surge. Currency markets show major volatility. The smart money, the institutional investors with access to better information, they're moving assets. Market analysts start using terms like geopolitical risk and flight to safety. If you see multiple markets showing extreme stress simultaneously, especially markets in different regions, that's institutional investors seeing the same intelligence and acting on it. Around the 24-hour mark, you might see emergency broadcast system tests. Governments start checking civil defense systems. Some countries activate emergency response coordination centers. In the US, FEMA might elevate its alert status. These are internal government actions mostly, but they sometimes leak through official channels or government employees noticing unusual activity. Public health departments might receive alerts to prepare for mass casualty scenarios. Emergency services get briefed on response protocols. Again, this information filters out through people who work in these systems between 12 and 24 hours before. The media coverage shifts. Mainstream news stops treating it as one story among many and starts leading with it continuously. Expert analysts start appearing constantly. Retired generals and former government officials start giving interviews with increasingly serious tones. The language changes from if this happens to when this happens. News channels start showing maps, showing potential targets, discussing scenarios. They're preparing the public mentally for what's coming at about 12 hours out. You see government communications increase. Emergency notification systems might send test messages. Local governments might activate emergency operations centers. Some areas might see increased police or National Guard presence at critical infrastructure. Power plants, water facilities, communication hubs, they get additional security. These are defensive measures, but they're visible if you're in the right areas. In the final 6 to 8 hours, air traffic patterns change noticeably. Commercial flights get grounded or rerouted. Airspace gets restricted. Military aircraft activity increases dramatically. Flight tracking apps show unusual patterns. If you live near military bases, you'll hear it. Constant aircraft movement, vehicles moving on base, activity levels that are obviously not normal operations. The last few hours, government officials might make public statements. Sometimes it's a final warning to the opposing country. Sometimes it's preparing their own population. These statements are usually broadcast on emergency networks. The tone is unmistakable. This isn't diplomatic posturing anymore. This is final notification. Here's what most people miss. Each of these signs alone could have alternative explanations. Military exercises happen. Markets fluctuate. Diplomatic tensions rise and fall. But when you see multiple indicators happening simultaneously, then the pattern matches across different domains. That's when you need to recognize what's happening. The practical reality is this. If you wait for official government evacuation, orders or public announcements telling you to prepare, you've lost most of your advantage. By the time it's on the evening news as breaking coverage, you're in the final hours. Stores are already being stripped. Roads are already congested. Your window for calm, rational preparation is gone. The people who make it through the initial phase aren't necessarily the ones with the most supplies or the best bunkers. They're the ones who recognize the pattern early, who had a plan already in place, and who executed that plan before the panic started. Those 48 hours are your advantage, but only if you're paying attention to the right indicators and willing to act on incomplete information. Preparation means having your plan ready now, having your supplies staged now, having your family communication plan established now. So when you see these indicators starting to line up, you're not scrambling to figure out what to do. You're executing a plan you've already thought through. That's the difference between being ahead of the crisis and being caught in it.